안녕하세요. Everything that may go wrong will go wrong. Bonjour. You can make yourself comfortable. I used to see people arguing about the upkeep of prisoners in jails, the terms of their sentences, and the criminal justice system itself, particularly when it comes to cases that result in unprecedented societal outrage. Today we are going to take a look at what ECHR thinks about that. But first thing first. The biggest changes in humanity's mind have happened a few times in history, and we cannot, under any circumstances, downplay the significance of the Human Rights Convention's implementation and recognition. Open society was a profound step forward in understanding what a human is. Nonetheless, it's tough to see the impact of devastating violations, so-called violations against humanity. Having the rights is good. Having the enforcement makes them even more visible, almost tangible. But whether this is an instinct or years of hatred nurtured as part of social development, humankind is seemingly willing to keep an eye for an eye. End of the paragraph with metaphors and personal attitude. Let's talk about socially useful matters. Long story short, the convention and the court itself provided us with a consciousness of what a human is, what kind of person deserves to live. The convention today says that anybody, no matter their life experience, has a right to live, a right to protect himself, and a right not to testify against himself. The absolutely absolutes tell us that nobody under any circumstances can be subjected to torture or behavior degrading human dignity. Why so? Let's examine every word. What is a torture? There is a tendency to call torture everything that forces us to get over ourselves and do beyond what our body allows. But there is a catch. People tend to embellish the situation by branding as torture everything that they get undeservedly and everything that they do not want. If unwillingness doesn't seem that controversial, the first is quite interesting. Who deserves the torture? It was a case once tried in the Human Rights Court. The discussion was spinning around the first article of the convention and the question, does the right to live equal to the right to die? The article of the convention says that all humankind has a non-derogatory right to live. So ultimately, the court made the decision that the legitimacy of the right to die dismissed the definition of this article. It leads us to the point that the person deserves to live. This is his basic right and function, because he is a human, a person, and a creature of nature. As for the inviolability of human dignity, one can argue as follows. There is no specific definition of a human, not to mention one tried to create one. His name is Michail Bulgakov. He was a Soviet classic writer who wrote the book called The Heart of a Dog, where one of his characters argues, did he talk? It doesn't mean to be human. But at least one thing we know exactly is that a person is a biological social being, so it may not be the determining factor, but at least a criterion. It is believed that the food and water are not enough to maintain life. A person needs communication, which is what keeps him alive. A person's dignity can be used as a tool to achieve the goal of social self-determination. So deprivation of this tool leads us to the cessation of supporting a person's life, to torture. After we examine the definition carefully, let's ask the last question and make a conclusion. Do you remember that at the outset of the video I mentioned the willingness to keep an eye for an eye? Basically, eye for an eye or tooth for a tooth means that a person should be punished in a way he offended. This concept, as well as many others, including Vendetta, are not allowed in the modern world. The one cannot be eliminated for killing anyone. Is it good or bad? It's dangerous. The thing is that the situation with conviction is much more complicated. Can the innocent person be wrongly or even falsely accused? In the world where this an eye for an eye rule works, will he be treated accordingly to what was done by him? In this situation, nothing. Even if we later recognize the mistake of the court, will this diminish the horrors of his suffering? Second, will this bloody system work well in the long term? The thing is that while all people are granted basic human rights equally and there are no exceptions, there is no legal approval for using the cruelty in any way. If it exists and is protected by law, it will affect the entire society, and there is no obstacle for the power one to use this in his favor. Evil begets evil. This is not just a phrase from a fairy tale. This principle keeps alive the entire nature of the human rights law. The court and the states that signed the convention share the view that any person may be brought to trial to examine his crimes and judge them as those committed against humanity. Nonetheless, in any circumstances, he has to be treated as a human who still has absolute rights. no torture. I will leave a couple of links in the description below for you to dive into human rights and the trial itself deeper. If you found this video sort of interesting, stick with me. See you next time. Bye bye!